Welcome to Conservation Connection, the show where we do just that, connect you every week to the people working in the field of conservation. I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah Catherine.
And this is the show. Sarah Catherine, what is your favorite memory of working at Florida Keys Aquarium Encounters?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I definitely had many great experiences, but I think what sticks out to me most is I got to work over by our turtle exhibit. So we had red sliders, box turtles, just all the kinds of turtles. And I always had this little exhibit of baby box turtles right in front of me. And when no one was in my area, I would just watch the baby box turtles, and they were precious. Of course, that has to compete with things like diving and cleaning the shark exhibit, cleaning the stingray exhibit, so many cool things. But I don't know, I just love those little baby turtles.
Baby box turtles are very, very cute. I have to give you that.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
I really liked when we got to dive in the mornings together as a team, you and I, and clean the shark exhibit, because I don't know many people that got the experience of 5 days a week swimming with sharks, and not just swimming, but having to dodge out of their way as they're swimming around. Do you remember that time one of them got caught in your regulator hose?
Oh, yeah. And I was what is happening? And I was it's okay. Take out regulator. Shark swim away, put regulator back in mouth, and breathe calmly.
You did a great job. As a scuba instructor, I was impressed.
Thank you. Honestly, what made me more nervous in that exhibit were the eels that would just come out and look at you suspiciously and swim towards you. And I was I don't want any of this.
Flotsam and jetsam, our eels, were super awesome. They were really cool animals.
They were cool, but they made me nervous sometimes.
I mean, also terrifying. I mean, they were 6 feet long.
Yeah. I will say, though, the eel teeth that we found in that exhibit, along with the shark teeth that we were able to find while we were cleaning, those were really freaking cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a treasured memory for me, is all of the stuff that we got to take home with us, like shark teeth and eel teeth and stingray plates and all that sort of cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And it gave me a real appreciation of fish as individuals that have personalities and behaviors that they do that other members of their species don't do, really, truly personalities.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk to people, they're often surprised to hear, oh, you can train fish, you can train lobster, you can train stingrays, you can train literally anything.
Yeah, Phil, the scrawled filefish, would swim through a hoop. He would come when I called. He would back up. He was a really cool fish. And, I just don't think that there's enough awareness of how cool fish are from a personality standpoint.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Speaking of fish, our guest for this week's episode is quite amazing. Chance, can you tell us about our guest?
So Dr. Sylvia Earle is, I throw this word around a lot, Titan, but really, seriously, if you Google famous marine biologists, she's in the top 3 hits. I think she shows up above Jacques Cousteau in terms of people who are famous for studying the ocean. She has been a National Geographic explorer at large since the 90s. She was NOAA's, so the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the people who study weather and the oceans. She was the first chief scientist at NOAA. She received the Hubbard Medal, which is the National Geographic Society's highest honor that they give full stop for research, exploration, stuff like that. She had how many hours underwater?
Yeah, she's logged something more than 7,000 hours underwater.
And she's been author on over 150 publications.
So talk about someone who knows fish. I think she knows a lot. When we've been talking to friends in our circle who aren't necessarily in our field about this interview with Sylvia Earle, for those of them that don't know who she is or what she does, I've been describing her as hey, do you know Jane Goodall? Yes? Okay. I think of Dr. Sylvia Earle as kind of the Jane Goodall of the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, she's done what we call saturation diving, which is where you scuba dive down to an underwater laboratory and get inside of it. It's not filled with water, so you can walk around, but you're still staying at depth under the ocean's surface. She's done that for weeks at a time.
Yeah, I think she told us she's done that 10 times.
Which is a lot.
Definitely.
I really enjoyed hearing her perspective on what it's like to live underwater and to see the underwater world in a way that most humans in existence ever in the history of time have not been able to do. It was such a cool perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we get a little of that by visiting aquariums and stuff. You get to be submersed into this world without actually having to be in the water at all, which is a cool experience, but it's never going to be exactly the same as it is out in the actual ocean.
Yeah, there's so much value in being in the natural environment and experiencing it and communicating that when you get back up to the surface, which is what she's done her entire career, is be like an ambassador for the oceans.
Yeah, she had a really great story to tell, and it was just wonderful for us to be able to meet her and have her on the show. Thank you, Dr. Sylvia Earle, for joining us. It was a blast.
It's also a great segue into our next season. So, unfortunately, this is the last episode of season 9.
Sad.
But it has been an incredible season so far. But it's a great segue into season 10 because we recorded this interview with Dr. Earle at EarthX in Dallas just a few weeks ago. And all of our episodes for next season come out of EarthX 2024.
Yeah, we just had some amazing interviews at EarthX. You know, we hope to get to go back again next year to get even more fun episodes, but I do really think that our audience will enjoy these stories that we have to tell and the people who told them.
I mean, we got to talk about doing expeditions to the most remote island chain in the world to clean up plastics. We talked about
More turtles,
some of my favorite turtles. And we talked to the world's only heavy metal marine biologist, Tom the Blowfish Herd.
Yeah, super fun stories. Can't wait for y'all to hear them. We'll probably be posting a little about that season coming up on Instagram, so you can see any of our updates there. You can also see when we will be coming back, what episodes we'll be releasing. I can tell you right now that our next episode will be released on July 2nd. So we can't wait for you to hear that. And with that, I guess it's time to get to this episode. Enjoy listening to what Dr. Sylvia Earle has to say. So today we are here with Dr. Sylvia Earle. Some may know her as Her Deepness. We're so thrilled to have you on the podcast with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on board.
You have such an incredible, storied career. Really, really excited to get...
Oh, it's a good start.
There you go. I think it's more than a good start.
Tell us about the first moment when you realized that you had a passion for the ocean and you cared so deeply and you dove right in.
When I was 3 years old.
That's an early start.
Got knocked over by a wave on the New Jersey shore. The ocean got my attention, and it's held my attention ever since.
I have a semi-similar story. I grew up actually here in Texas. We're here at EarthX 2024.
I'm still working on growing up. How about you?
Fair enough.
It's overrated.
I spent my youngest days in Texas, we'll put it that way.
Okay, that's better.
But my mom is from Huntington Beach, California.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Great
when I was
place.
about 10, she took me out to go see where she grew up. And I was used to Texas Gulf, which is much calmer waves than you get at Huntington Beach. And I was having a great time, got knocked down. This is shortly after about, I'd say 30 junior lifeguards had just swum a mile in the ocean. And I had to be rescued by lifeguards, which was...
That was an experience.
That was quite an experience. It was...
He hasn't even told you the best part yet.
Okay, so the best part is that my swim trunks fell down as I was being rescued.
Now that's exciting.
Yeah, it was not awesome for 10-year-old chances like ego, but it did give me, like you, a great passion and understanding of the power of the ocean and our need to protect it.
You're here.
Yeah. Luckily, you were a visitor, though, so you didn't run into those people again. But someone may be listening today that's like, oh, yeah, I remember that. So,
Little kid with no pants.
yeah, exactly.
If you were Huntington
exactly.
Beach in probably 2000 or so, that could have been me.
Yeah. So, after 3 years old, growing up, when did you first... You know, of course, as you're a teenager, you're young, we have these passions of things. We're like, wow,
I just always wanted to do something with plants and animals. I didn't know what to call it.
Yeah, that's how I was too. When I was growing up, I was like, I want to work with dolphins. I love dolphins. I want to work with dolphins. And I was like, how am I going to work with dolphins? I'll have to be a vet or something. I'm like, no, there are so many other options out here. So what was your first job that you had getting into this field?
Oh, I don't remember. First job.
That's okay.
I mean, I think my connection with the ocean has been a continuous journey. In school, I'd take classes when I had a choice. You know, you don't have much of a choice when you're in grade school, but I devoured books. And today, the opportunities for kids to learn about the ocean, even if they never see the ocean directly, is so much greater than it was not so long ago. And I read William Beebe's book, Half Mile Down, when I was, I guess, 13. And I was entranced with just the concept of going down beneath where sunlight shines and see these luminous creatures that would flash and sparkle and glow. And it was Beebe's description. He was a scientist, but he also had the ability as a poet to convey the way most scientists either cannot or choose not to express the joy that they have out observing nature.
And that's really powerful. It's a big part of what we try to do on our show is give scientists and conservationists that voice and that ability to convey their passion without getting caught up in sort of this technical jargon. We try to do a lot of that science communication. So Sylvia Earle is proof that it works and can inspire great people when you communicate your science really properly. I'm really interested to hear how that early experience reading about Half Mile Below translated into your experience on Tektite 2 as the team leader for this saturation diving that happened off of one of my favorite places in the world, the Virgin Islands, where I've spent a lot of time diving a little bit later than you did. But can you tell me a little bit of some of your favorite memories from the Tektite?
The opportunity to live underwater, to spend a couple of weeks, day and night, was transformative for me. Even Beebe did not have the opportunity to get to know individual fish. Big moray eel that we could visit and expect to find him in his own special cave, or to get to know 5 angelfish that separated, slept in different places in the reef at night, but they came together, and during the day they just swam around together. They were young. Later on, they tend to pair up and stick together. And the whole idea that fish pair off, not all of them do, but some do, some mate for life. At least seem to. We haven't been able to do what Jane Goodall and other terrestrial scientists have been able to do, to stay literally in day and night for not just weeks, but months and years, to get to know individuals and track them through generations. Those organisms in the sea that are known through generations tend to be our fellow mammals that are witnessed largely from the surface, like Shane Garrow in the Dominican Republic and his predecessor, Hal Whitehead, were able to get to know individual sperm whales and to track them, knowing who they are and who their offspring are, and to see that after 7 or 8 years, the young males tend to take off, but they come back. They come back. And it's a matriarchal society. The whalers of years ago had no clue. They might have known that whales feel pain because they
would react to being harpooned and stuff.
Well, yeah. Actually, fish react too. Mm-hmm. And some of them do make sounds that are an indication that they hurt. But many of them don't make sounds that are perceptible by humans. It doesn't mean they aren't hurting.
Right.
Anyway, so because we are looking as terrestrial creatures, we know other terrestrial creatures, or at least air breathers, better than we do those that require, if we're going to get to know them, we need to get down to where they are. Looking at captive animals gives us some clues. Looking at fish in aquarium, and that has given us some insight, too. My daughter volunteered at the Steinhardt Aquarium in San Francisco for years. And those fish got to know her, as opposed to some of the others.
Yeah. Fish are
whom
so smart.
They didn't like them as much as they liked my daughter. They'd squirt water at them, but not at my daughter.
I have the opposite end of that. So I used to work at an aquarium in the Florida Keys called Florida Keys Aquarium Encounters.
Oh, yeah.
And my job was to take guests of the aquarium into the water, swim with our reef fish, and hand feed our sharks through a plexiglass. And so I was in and out of the water probably 8 to 10 times a day as a primary food for these fish.
You got dishpan body.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And do you remember that Spanish grunt that used to live under the bench?
Absolutely.
I would get in, I would sit down and kind of put my hands on the bench as I'm like moving myself around in my scuba gear. And he would bite my fingers every day. And I gave him food all the time. And finally we came...
telling you I want food.
That's it. We came to an understanding where I would drop in...
We had to give him a special feeding time.
We would drop in some food for him before I got in the water. And then he wouldn't bite me. He'd be too full to do so. And, I think we're just in this age...
See, you can learn things.
Right. Exactly
with fish
right.
as the teachers.
Absolutely right. And, we now understand that fish, pretty much all animals have these really rich internal lives. They feel pain. Of course they have emotion. And that was just...
senses that we can barely imagine.
Absolutely.
Can't imagine at all. Like, imagine if we had a lateral line down the length of our body, the way many of the bony fishes have.
And you could feel things passing next to you.
We think that's what but we don't really know.
Right. There's so much discovering.
Or to sense electrical fields the way sharks can.
I wish I had ampullae of Lorenzini so that I could just sense things with that are moving by.
So now you know that word.
Yeah, ampullae of Lorenzini. That's what it's called. Those are the little pits that sharks and anybody that does that.
And they may do things we have. Imagine trying to explain sight if you've never had sight. There are senses that are like magnified sense of smell, chemoreception, sense of hearing beyond our range, sense of taste beyond our ability. So many attributes that throughout the animal kingdom are either enhanced or different somehow from what we have. And yet we see through this narrow window. But I think the most important thing we've begun to see is the magnitude of what we don't know.
Oh, yeah. There is so much we don't know. I mean, you have your ocean and you have space, and they're similar in a lot of ways, different in a lot of ways, obviously, but both very vast and unknown. And you talked a little bit about kind of your discoveries that you made as you were essentially living underwater and observing these fish, observing these eels, and noticing all these new things that no one knew about. Do you have a favorite discovery that you made or were a part of in your time so far in this field?
Oh, I think it was just that awareness that intellectually, I think I understood that every fish is different, that every lobster, the capacity of nature not only to take the basic elements of life that all living creatures share. We have all this common ground, but then to be able to act on it in such a way that not just every species is different, but every individual within every species, every individual, period. Every one of us, there's nobody else in the universe like whoever you are. It's every shrimp, every housefly, every bee, every earthworm. They all kind of look alike if you pull back and say, oh, no, they're individuals. That came into focus for me, living underwater, getting to spend some time. Jane Goodall got to know chimpanzees through generations by spending years. I only had that little initially 2-week window to have this fast track experience. But I've lived underwater now 10 times and been able to keep verifying that concept, that awareness, and now applying it everywhere I go. That respect for every living thing as an individual, and every living thing basically a miracle, because nowhere else in the universe, as far as we know, is there anything like what we have here on Earth, this living planet.
it's quite something to be able to say that you've lived underwater 10 times. I've lived underwater exactly 0 times. If I don't count when I've held my breath underwater. What was your favorite place that you lived underwater, or were they all in the same place?
No, different places, but it doesn't matter. Every place you have the chance to see whatever's there to be seen. And those experiences were like way stations on the journey to the next place, the next thing. And I did finally, 1986, channel my inner William Beebe by being in a one-person sub. He was with his engineer colleague, Otis Barton, who designed and built the little bathysphere that they were in. I worked with engineers to help craft the little submarine that I actually was in by myself at about the same depth, half mile down, 1,000 meters under the surface. And unlike Barton and Beebe, who had to scrunch down and look through a tiny little window, I was like inside of a sphere that was totally clear, the Deep Rover submersible. And it was, I think, a treat for the fish to look in and see this primate invading their territory.
Yeah, right? They're like, who are you?
Right. I thought I was down there to say, who are you? And it
Yeah.
was the other way around. And it was a transformative to be able to go below where sunlight shines and to see that the diversity and abundance of life, and to realize in subsequent trips, I haven't been to the deepest part of the ocean, but everywhere in the ocean, everywhere in freshwater, but especially in the ocean, life abounds. Where there's water on Earth, there's likely to be life. There's water without life, but no life without water.
Yeah. Man, what a quote.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And something I just want to take a minute to talk about here is that we've talked a little bit about communication already in this conversation. And I think in many ways the ocean has a communications issue because we can't see. Humans don't routinely see what's happening under the surface on a regular basis.
It's one of the biggest problems. People cannot care if they don't know. They might not care even if they do know, but if you're just blissfully unaware, it's hard to do the right thing.
That's why the work that you have been a part of over the course of your career so far has been, it's so important, because just getting down there and seeing it, documenting it, being able to say, no, this eel lives in this same hole all the time. That's his home. Just like I have a home, you have a home, you have a home.
Making it relatable.
Exactly. It's making it relatable to people who would otherwise never have that opportunity.
But to realize that we're all sea creatures. That is, without the ocean, none of us could exist. That it's the ocean that is not only makes Earth habitable for eels, whales, coral reefs, kelp forests, all of that, but take away the ocean, life is not possible. We could not exist here. We could not. I mean, first of all, 97% of Earth's water is ocean. We're 97% of the biosphere where life occurs. It's ocean. As terrestrial creatures, it's taken us a while to come around to that awareness. But I think this is the most important time in all of human history, because for the first time we have the capacity to see ourselves as we have not been able to see ourselves before. We connect in ways that simply could not happen before. I sometimes say, thank you, fossil fuels, because with all of the problems that have been caused through burning fossil fuels that we now are facing up to, but for that energy that we have consumed over the last 200 years, we would not have gone to the moon. We wouldn't have the communication systems that we now have in place. We wouldn't have the knowledge that now exists, and a lot of other things. But we wear the health systems that have evolved, largely driven by the ability to turn energy to our purposes. And now the opportunity is never before armed with knowledge that is truly our superpower, the last best chance we'll ever have to take what remains of the natural system and basically make peace with nature. We need to stop killing things. We need to stop the consumption of nature as if it's just there for us to convert to other purposes, when we realize that the highest and best purpose, for example, of all of the natural systems, land and sea, from our standpoint, is we exist because nature exists. But we have converted so much of those natural systems to purposes that don't include maintaining life on Earth, that really have converted them into dead ends, buildings, roads, old growth forests into single crops like soy, like starting with conversion of American wilderness into tobacco and corn, pumpkins and whatever it is. It has fostered our prosperity. But now, with 8 billion of us, there were only 2 billion when I arrived. So I've been a witness to this conversion of nature to support an increasing number of us and a diminishing of nature, the cost of our prosperity. Okay, enough. We can look back and say, I wish we had known, we might have done things differently, but here we are. Now we know. We still have the chance. It's not just a chance, it's the best chance we will ever have, because we can still breathe. The climate is changing and it's kind of out of kilter, but now we know. Imagine if we did not know.
Yeah, and you mentioned that on the panel that we just were able to see you speak on, which was wonderful. And again, now saying that, we were able to get here. And so thank you for letting us get to this point where we have all these great things. But now we have the opportunity where we do know, where we can make a change.
Choose.
Exactly. We can choose the change we want to be, the change we want to make. So with all of that said, what gives you hope that we can make that change?
Because we are making changes. The conference that we're sharing right now, EarthX, could not have happened 50 years ago. I mean, literally could not have happened. We didn't know enough to make this an urgent matter that is bringing people together who differ on many things, but we all like to breathe. We need a planet that is favorable to our existence. And here we are. Nobody can do everything that it takes, but everyone can do something.
It's a team effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really excellent points I've heard you make is that we now have the knowledge and we have the technology to use that knowledge, right? There was a point in time where we didn't understand the implication of this sort of linear economy.
Well, the technology that is most critical is communication. To be able to make a discovery, make a connection, have new insights that can be shared in a heartbeat around the planet and elevate the level of knowing. And we need to get a kind of a critical mass of people to understand the problems that we now face and the sense of urgency, and also the will to act on what we know. I mean, people can make personal choices to say, oh, now I see that when I take a tuna out of the ocean, put it on my plate, that has impact. And if I say, I'm going to do what I can to keep the tuna, keep the shrimp, keep the krill, keep life in the ocean, I have a choice. My existence doesn't depend on having tuna salad or sandwiches or sushi. I have lots of choices about what to eat. And I choose life.
Yeah.
If everybody looks, what can I do? There's simple things about how you live that times 8 billion can make a huge difference.
And to tie that back to what you're saying with communications, you listening to this show right now, podcast listener, you are a huge part of this solution.
Absolutely.
The choices you make. I mean, just choosing to listen to this show and listen to Dr. Earle speak about this is a step in the right direction.
You're making a difference no matter what. By doing nothing, you're part of the problem. But you're here, breathing the air, consuming nature, whoever you are. But you can make conscious choices that can lead to a better place.
You heard it from Dr. Sylvia Earle. You can make the world a better place.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. There you go. With that tuna or no tuna, where you get your tuna from. Now, if someone listening wanted to get involved with Mission Blue or any of the projects you do to make a difference, that way they're really passionate about the ocean and your work. Is there anything they could do or somewhere they could go to find out more about your work and how they could get involved?
It's the same old story. Go to the web. Check out Mission Blue. There are options. We have now around the world more than 160 places that have been recognized as hope spots, with champions, with communities, with institutions, with people who are stepping up to do what they can to turn either a place that's been damaged one way or another to help with the restoring, or to protect what's in pretty good shape, to be part of the communication or science or art or whatever. There are ways that you can contribute. Or if there's a place that you know about that you think you could nominate as a hope spot, go to the website, punch the button that says apply here, and see what it takes to become part of this network. It's a global system. We're trying to connect the dots now so that we can look in a more consistent way. Who has coral reefs? Who has kelp forests? Who has whale sharks? And share the stories, share the information. We're working with Esri, the Global Information Systems Company, with story maps that can characterize each of these places. Some are small, like Fish Rock in Western Australia, and the Sargasso Sea that is largely in the high seas in the Atlantic Ocean. But whether small, medium, or large, they all have champions and voices, people doing what they can to keep intact what's working and repair to the extent of what they can, and to communicate, to share the view, gather information, get databases that establish baselines so change can be measured over time, and to work with other organizations. Mission Blue has more than 200 partners. We're not trying to be out there, all by ourselves, saving the world. No. We want to do our part in connecting with as many partners as possible and celebrate the success wherever we see it. Nobody can save anything all by themselves, but we can all do something. And Mission Blue's mission is to elevate what others are doing, to do what we can do with the champions, to be a voice for the ocean.
It's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
We really talk about that a lot on this show.
Yep.
Is that collaboration is key, community over competition, all of that kind of stuff.
Always.
So whether you're listening and you love working with data points, or you're an artist or a scientist, like Dr. Earle mentioned, there is always a place for you to be involved.
Use your power, whatever it is. Look in the mirror. That's the key. I can't tell anybody. I barely tell myself. Okay, what can you do? How do you, come on, shape up. I've been privileged to have had thousands of hours underwater, to be a witness in ways that I know most people haven't had the chance to be in little submarines, to go down, to be in the darkness and to see the creatures there, and to try to first learn about them, learn their stories, and then to share the view. Imagine if astronauts came back from high in the sky and did not tell us what they saw. They said, "Oh, that was cool. Yeah,
Sorry,
had a good time."
Keep that to myself.
But they didn't tell us what it's like. I know that the investment made in me, it's not about me. I'm a conduit. I'm driven to share the view. I want people to know. I want people to go and see for themselves. I want kids to dive in. No child left dry.
Everybody get out there and get knocked over by a wave.
Yeah.
It's important. I mean, it happened to me. It happened to you. It's an important thing.
Yeah. And get a face mask. It's one of the keys. If you had one piece of equipment to explore the ocean, just one piece that you could, of course I'd say get a submarine, but that's a lot of pieces put together.
Definitely.
But a face mask to be able to see clearly makes all the difference. It was transformative. Jacques Cousteau, when he had a face mask and went underwater in the Mediterranean, changed his perspective. You look above water, all the people, and you go below water, there's another universe.
You can get lost down there.
Yeah. It's actually a big part of why I became a scuba instructor. It's because I wanted to be able to introduce new people to visit. Share the view, to see this underwater world that I love.
Yeah. You can't stand knowing they don't know. Come along.
Right. I want to share it with you. I mean, it's why we do what we do, where we're in communications and science communication, is because I think everybody should share in the joy and the passion of the environment.
It's part of what makes humans special. We learn things, we pass it along. We've been doing that through generations as long as there have been humans, and we're not unique in passing information along from one generation to the next. I mean, look at whales, birds, and other creatures. It's out there. But no species has been as successful as we have at being able to gather knowledge and keep passing it along. But it's accelerated. We have really put on the afterburners for the last couple hundred years, especially the last 50 or so, since we have really become connected in a way that you can pick up that little device you carry in your pocket, wake somebody up on the other side of the world, and say, hey.
Guess what I just found?
Yeah, listen up.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show today with us, Dr. Earle. This has been a really fantastic conversation, and we just really appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours, and all of you who are listening. Bravo. Thank you.
Bravo indeed. I mean, man, what a way to end season 9.
Yeah, I really love this episode as the cap to this season. I think, this has kind of been a season where we changed things up a little bit, revamped the show format. There's more conversation between us, and I think it's a really impactful episode to end this season on.
Yeah, and there were so many fun stories of just living underwater and experiencing that alien world. So cool.
Yeah, it really makes me want to go diving or just swimming or something.
I know, right? We need to get to the water soon. I mean, It is summer coming up, so maybe we'll make it out to go diving.
Yeah. Speaking of summer, we are putting in a custom order of tank tops by the brand Comfort Colors. If you know that brand, they're so comfortable. They're like my favorite shirt ever. So if you want a tank top, reach out to us on Instagram, let us know you're interested, and we'll include you in that order.
We're going to miss you guys over the break. We're gone until July 2nd, when we'll be posting our next season, season 10, which was all recorded at EarthX in Dallas, Texas. Really cool stories. If you miss us over the break, like we're going to miss you guys, you can check out our backlog of episodes. I mean, this was episode 124. So if you haven't listened to them all, go for it. If you have listened to every episode, please let me know because I want to meet you.
Definitely.
You can also find us on Instagram, and we've just set up a Reddit account. So if you are a Redditor, like I have been for the last 15 years, you can find us at ConConPodcast is our username on Reddit. So we'd love to chat.
That's all for now. You'll be hearing from us again in July.